Hey Void, how you doing? So, Phoebe Rizzo's back. Another on my Shutter track. This one was another one from the weekend, but I actually ran out of time recording last night, so here I am today. And this is one that, well, I feel a little odd trying to weigh in on this one because given my pasty white ass, I really am the guy to be properly talking about horror noir, a history of black horror. But I'll do my best. Well, so this is a documentary which goes into the history of horror from the gaze of African Americans. So, black folks in horror, and it goes about it trying from essentially a series of interviews with a lot of directors, actors, who starred in a lot of the iconic horror films, and takes it right from the black perspective, which is something I lack entirely, completely, obviously. But I will say, I still found the movie fascinating. There's a lot there that, given my own position, I would not have considered for how things are portrayed. I mean, there's the obvious trope of the black guy always dies first, and they talk about that, and how that trope isn't definitely not always true, even earlier on, but it became kind of the stereotype, which did allow them to set up for breaking that one. The film goes over like kind of era by era, so what was first happening and the roles of black people in earlier films were pretty much relegated to servants or voodoo priests, and then but there's a period where they pretty much vanished, and then came where they were more villainized, and how a lot of monsters could be an easy sub-in for other races, particularly black people. And I can definitely understand and see that. It's not something that a lot of it would have occurred to me initially, honestly. But having it pointed out completely, it's like, yeah, I can see that. Some of the things, from my perspective, may have seemed like a little bit of a reach, but that said, I can understand that if that's how they see it. That's I'm not going to tell them that they're wrong, because if that's how it played to them and was interpreted to the black audiences, yeah, fair, completely. Covers the black exploitation era and how that did get them a lot more representation, but at the same time, black Americans that were heavily stereotyped, so it became kind of the double-edged sword of being on the big screen, but in less desirable roles. Though there are a few that definitely stood out. There's a lot of love here for Blackula, for example. And even earlier about how Night of the Living Dead was such an important film, particularly given that this was one of the first black protagonists in a horror film. And what happens to him, well, was chilling, particularly for the black audience. So, yeah. Even though Romero has pretty much said that he never intended that role to be a racial commentary, just the actor that showed up was the best guy for the role, so which at the same time just adds a little bit more power to that statement. And then it kind of goes into what roles or stereotypes or tropes that was filled in and how things are progressively getting better. Hopefully it continues that upward trend, particularly with a lot of Jordan Peele's work. I believe this came out just around the same time as Us, because they talk about Get Out quite a bit in here. This documentary came out in 2019. So I will say the whole flow of it was good. The commentaries and hearing people weigh in about their roles, and me seeing a lot of characters, well, the actors for characters that I recognized, Tony Todd. Some of them I know them more by their character than by the actor name. But there's a couple from Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th that I knew who they were as soon as they started talking, even though they've grown up quite a bit. And Jordan Peele weighing in on how he wasn't even sure Get Out would have gone well, and was quite pleased that it took off the way it did because he knew he was taking some big risks. And I guess the studios gave him a lot of pushback on it. But I think, which I haven't actually reviewed Get Out yet. I've seen it. I really did like it. Personally, I preferred Us myself, but I kind of see why Get Out would be more popular overall. Losing train of thought. Well, so essentially, it's a lot of people with a lot of insight and a lot of charisma just talking about movies and the history of horror, and it's fascinating. My only complaint is the documentary is less than an hour and a half. Most documentaries usually are, well, Crystal Lake Memories was, fuck, that took me days to get through. This one was a quick sit. And honestly, I could have used a little bit more of it. I know on Shudder they've got a podcast series where it has like unedited interviews, so I'm probably going to check that out. I was fascinated into a lot of what they were talking about, so I just learned this about myself, that I'm kind of a sucker for horror documentaries. I didn't know I liked them as much as I did. Ever since I saw Crystal Lake Memories, though, it kind of got me looking forward to seeing more of these. So this one, or the Spookers one wasn't as big for me, but it was still interesting. I know I saw a couple other little ones here or there, but I know there's some others that are in the Shudder library, like there's a Evil Dead one, an Alien one, one talk about called Scream Queen, which I think is coming up really soon in my queue, which talks about the gay elements of Nightmare on Elm Street 2. And then In Search of Darkness is one I can't wait to get to, which is talks about 80s horror, which is my jam. So, but getting off topic, horror noir. Well, this one, I will say, gave me a few more movies that I want to check out, because there's a few of these I hadn't heard of. A few of them that I had seen, naturally. I mean, they bring up King Kong and Son of Ingagi. Talking about King Kong being a unfortunate possible metaphor for the... There's a lot of early depictions of the black men being predatory towards white women, and King Kong is like almost an allegory for that, and I would have interpreted it like that, but I can see it. So I definitely get what they're talking about there. There's a lot of metaphors and allegories that I wouldn't have gotten, but they spell it out pretty clear. And yeah, it was a good watch. I do highly recommend it. If you're a history buff, particularly a film history one, this has some interesting stuff for it. Like I said, only criticism, I could have used some more. It goes pretty quick. And if they spent a little bit more time on each era, I would have wanted to hear more movies brought up, or see if they could get a few more actors to weigh in, or I know black directors are not nearly as common, but I know there's a few more you could have maybe dug up, and I would have liked to heard from them. But yeah, so overall, I'm giving this one, I'd say, 7 MacGuffins. The flow is good, the information is good, but again, I just wanted more of it. So I would have easily given this an 8 if they just let itself breathe a little bit more. That's only my only criticism. It's fine documentary. It's hard to grade a documentary, but this one I liked. Well, catch you later, Void. I'll probably be watching a few more things this week, and hopefully get a chance to do a bit more of my Shudder binge this weekend. I don't know if I'm going to have as much time, but we'll see what we can do. Talk to you later, Void.